Good evening and salutations, my GH fans. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to sit there and talk about yesterday's bombshell. Something that I missed yesterday was finding out that Jen Sitwell paid the judge to grant Michael custody of the kids. You know what? It made me think for a half minute. And granted, I don't think this is true, but Drew has been acting very sus for, well, a while. What if it's possible that Drew was the one that told Sitwell to get the judge to vote for Michael, make Willow more vulnerable to his proposal, and then get back the kids, right? With this daffy ass plan that I don't even understand how it worked the first time with Michael and Willow, but you know, get back the kids. She's even more happier. She's more, just deeper in his orbit. Now, I gotta sit there and say that that theory sounds daffy as hell, and that takes a lot of work to sit there and do. I don't think it's possible, but I know how the internet thinks, and it just made me sit there and think, what if he did do that? I don't think he did that. I hope he didn't do that. But it goes into today's episode with Willow waking up, being out of it. There's a point where Drew's like, have you thought about what I said? Willow's like, why would I do, why would that make, how would I get back the kids if you're the reason why I lost the kids in the first place? I was like, no. This is what we're not doing. Okay? You are a grown ass woman with 2 kids. We're not going to sit there and play the goddamn victim. We're not doing that. Okay? Ava was going along with Nina as far as Nina's concerned, saying, this is our Drew's fault, this is our Drew's fault. This is not all on Drew. This is on your dingbat of a daughter as well. We're not just going to sit there and put this on Drew. But, what's the point of Ava sitting there being real with her when that's not what she needs right now? But, then he gets Martin to come over, and Martin explains how it worked. And pretty much the idea was to sit there and give her hope, which that's exactly what happened. So with that being said, she was like, okay, fine, you know what? Listen, this makes more sense. I'm able to breathe. Let's do it. Let's get married. She calls Nina. They head down to the pool. Now, Wiley, Michael, and Christina was hanging out at the pool. And when they got done, they wound up leaving. And, he left his shirt. And as they're talking, Willow sees the shirt. She's like, oh, I want to sit there and, I want to sit there and give back to Wiley. Now, her plan was to sit there and hang out at the pool because she knew what time that, he has his pool schedule. It's like, that's a bad idea. You can't go over it. You can't see your kids right now, And she even said, listen, I was hoping to bump into him. Like, but if I just bump into him accidentally, no. That's not how that works. Whoa, that's not how that works. You can't do that. Okay? Christina comes back. Well, Christina is walking around. Nina doesn't want Willow to go over there to make the situation work, so she gets Christina to come over to get the shirt. And just as Willow's about to sit there and say, can you sit there and tell the kids? She doesn't say anything. Christina, she's like, no, I'll tell them. She was sympathetic. She's like, I'll do this. Because before, they were hanging out at the pool, And, Wiley was like, oh, I can hold my breath for such a long time. And Michael was like, where did you learn that from? And he was like, Drew. Michael just you just have one of those, like, you can see somebody's expression on their face without saying it. Now, granted, he showed it after he got underneath the pool and everything like that. And after they were done, he was hoping that Wiley didn't see it. Him making that face. But, ultimately what it comes down to is that Michael, oh, listen, that whole dating, marriage, that's done. But he knows that Wiley, that the kids need their mother. He just can't trust her. He can't trust her as long as she's with Drew. That's what it comes down to. He doesn't think that she's a terrible mother. He just thinks that she's making terrible decisions because right now, she's with Drew, and Drew is not helping the situation. Yes, Drew played a major part in Wiley, her losing the kid. And now, for some odd reason, just kind of goes back to that theory again. You know, they go there for a second time. It really depends because yesterday I sat there and I watched it and I was like, all right, it was tampering, right? It was tampering. Now, let's say that Drew had nothing to do with it. They find out, somebody, find out that Sitwell was the one behind the whole judge decision. That means that they could sit there and easily do a redraw. And, one of the things I don't really like about Family Court a lot of times is that they will generally side with the mother. And I don't feel like that's necessarily right or fair. Um, I think it should really comes down to who is the best parent. Who is the best parent for the children? Not necessarily because she's a woman, because she's the mother. I don't understand how that works in their head, and that makes sense, and that's legal. But regardless of that, you can always sit there and do it again. And Michael may lose the case. And if it was Drew that was behind the whole thing, and they blackmail another judge, she can get custody. She can get custody. You know, Trina and Kai are in bed talking about Drew. Because that's what you want to sit there and be doing over in bed. But he tells Trina that Drew apologized for, I don't know, I guess getting his hopes up or whatever, which honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't think he has anything to apologize for. That's on Kai, not on Drew. But even with that being said, even Trina was like, okay, listen, I can't be upset with that. He did apologize and everything like that. Um, they talk about it more. They also talk about the internship. She doesn't seem like she's too happy about that. And when he leaves, she goes to Ava. She tells Ava about the situation. Can't play football again and stuff like that. And the thing is, there's a point where she says that she does not want to be a controlling girlfriend. The problem is that you're doing exactly that in a sense. You know, there's times in life where your partner will be around people or know someone or whatever that you don't necessarily like. You don't get along, you don't vibe with, and she needs to learn how to agree to disagree. She says, "Oh, I don't want to be controlling. I like the fact that he's confident, he's assertive, and stuff like that." But yet, you're basically saying that you don't want him to be an intern for Drew and everything like that. You want him to get away from Drew. Kai's a grown ass man. Kai can sit there and make his own choices. And he does go to Drew. he does initially turn him down because he's like, I want to graduate and I don't want to sit there and go to DC. So he's like, no, I'm good. You're like, listen, it could be flexible. You can spend some time in DC just to kind of get the lay of the land, but you can also be based here. So when I go to DC, you can sit there, represent me and my interests here. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Plus, again, there's a lot of benefits. It looks good on his college application and stuff like that. So he agrees. And the thing is, when Trina finds out, she's going to have somewhat of a connection for it. I'm like, girl, you don't necessarily need to like it. I get it, but you say you don't want to fight about Drew. That's what you're going to wind up doing. Don't be what you say that you're trying not to be. Um. Okay, so Turner, they're doing their Corinthos or the Corinthos coffee versus the PCP, whatever. PCPD. Yeah, PCPD. And there's a point where Turner comes in. And Turner's sitting there talking to Anna like, oh, listen, I'm going to be on the team or whatever, get the network, but I don't really know how to sit there and play any baseball. And I'm like, so you're not really going to help the team, you're just going to hinder it. But hey, you get to sit there and make connections and kind of get you further up the ranks. You're just, cost them their game because, well, you can't play. There's one point she's talking to Sonny, saying it's like, oh, you don't really seem like you're a good softball player, or whatever, but you really know what you're doing, whatever. It's like, no, listen, I was racist, and then I went, afterwards, anything that happened or whatever. Sonny says that, it's a shame, you're a very pretty woman, you know, you should smile or whatever. I don't use this term often, but Turner gave like the most wokest goddamn answer I've ever heard in my entire life. Okay? She was like, what did she say? What did she say? She was like, it's 2025. Is a man asking a woman to smile? Are you fucking serious? Like seriously, did you really just sit there and say that? Yes, it's 2025, and a man is asking you to smile. Put on your big girl pants and smile. Or just say no. But don't sit there and make a big like it almost came across like she was offended, like, oh, that's sexism or that's a sexist comment. No. I don't understand, when did that actually become offensive? Remember a couple of years ago, and I'm not gonna sit there and go into a huge tangent, but remember a couple of years ago there was some women that used to be offended when you would sit there and say female. The same shit that you see on a doctor's, like on a doctor's thing, whatever. When you go for a checkup and it says male or female, I was like, girl, I was actually kind of liking you a little bit until you said some dumb shit like that. 2025, you're asking a woman to smile. Yes, bitch, I'm asking a woman to smile. It's either a yes or no. Why do you gotta sit there and make this into a political correctness thing? Okay, I got that off my chest. I feel better now. I was really trying to refrain from saying that, but mm-mm. um. Let's see, I talked about Nina. Oh, so afterwards, after Christina came and she got the shirt, Nina finds out that Willow wants to marry. Well, Willow's going to marry Joe. For that Daffy ass plan that for some odd reason worked the first time. Also, now it's at a point where Nina wants to sit there and tell the truth. Nina's like, listen, I got to I got to get her away from Joe. So I just tell the truth. Now it was like, no, 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 don't do that, because if you do that, given the time that's passed now, she may not believe you, and then you won't be able to be there for her. Well, at this point, if she gets married, then you definitely won't be able to get to her because she'll be in DC, and I think that's what's going to wind up happening. I think that's when the bombshell is going to reveal. Because here's the thing: we already knew that secret was going to come out at some point in time. We just didn't know when, and it makes perfect sense for it to happen during a wedding. Um, to have some truth other than just what they're saying that. Part of me was like, oh, I didn't think about that until I started doing a review. Oh, there's some geo parts that's almost not worth even mentioning. It's about a dog, and um, Sonny convinces Geo to sit there and play for his side for his Corinthos coffee or whatever company. And yeah, they find a lost dog, and if they don't find the person, which they're not going to find the person, um, Emma's going to sit there and keep the dog. I feel like that's about it. All right. Hmm. Now I think that's pretty much about it. I can't think of anything else that will end up happening. If I forget anything, write it in the comment section below. Or come to a live stream tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We will be talking about all 5 of the soap operas. You know what they are. And hopefully, I'll see you tonight.